Welcome to stormTRacker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
As we kick off the new National Hockey League season, the question on a lot of folks' minds is, who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year? You know, if you're a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights, or the New Jersey Devils, you're definitely in the conversation. And how about the Carolina Hurricanes? You know, the Canes have gone deep in the playoffs the last couple of seasons, and they felt they were close. This offseason, they wanted to address the needs that they felt they had to get over the top. When I took a deep dive into the Hurricanes in preparing for this preview, I saw some areas I thought they needed to shore up. In particular, they needed to look at the power play, they needed to look at toughness, and they needed to make sure they brought back the key players from last year. I'm going to spend a few minutes and talk about those things as we look at our season preview for the Carolina Hurricanes next. Rod Brindamore has said many times that he believes that specialty teams are a key differentiator in the playoffs. The Canes' penalty killing has been amongst the team leaders for the last number of seasons. Led by Captain Jordan Staal, they have been outstanding. On the other hand, the power play, not so much. Some mixed success, and particularly in the playoffs last year, they just did not get it done. So the Canes went out and shored it up this year with some key moves. In free agency, they moved quickly to sign left winger Michael Bunting from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bunting had just come off a couple of excellent seasons with Toronto, 23 goals in each year and a high 63 points 2 years ago. And last year in that 23 goals, 7 of them were on the power play. So clearly Bunting brings a new dimension to the Hurricanes. He's a feisty player. He likes to get into the dirty areas, and he wants to be in and around the net, and that's something the Canes have lacked in their power play situation previously. The Canes also went out and made a big move to bring back Tony DeAngelo. This was kind of a circuitous route for them. They had made a deal to get Tony from Philadelphia, where he played last year, and the National Hockey League said no, the deal couldn't go through. But the Canes were relentless in trying to get Tony, and ultimately were able to make the deal happen. So Tony's contract was bought out by Philadelphia, and the Canes subsequently signed Tony as a free agent to join the Hurricanes. Big news. 2 years ago, Tony was outstanding on the power play for the Hurricanes. He notched 20 points in his 51 that he scored with the Hurricanes. And alongside his partner, Jacob Slavin, Tony managed a plus 30 for the season. So overall, outstanding play from Tony DeAngelo. Tony's going to come in and quarterback the power play, and that's going to be huge. That's going to allow them to do some different things and actually create some different looks for the power play this season. Again, shoring up the power play was key, so they went out and signed another free agent. This time it was Dimitry Orlov. Orlov, arguably the top free agent available this year, had just come off an excellent season with the Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins. Dimitry has been a plus player for 8 straight seasons, so he's definitely a solid player on both sides of the puck. And he also has had 4 seasons where he's had plus 30 points. And of course, most people know this about Dimitry Orlov. He has a booming slap shot. So he'll get a chance on the power play to rip those shots from the point, and that's going to add another new dimension to the Hurricanes. So you take a look at these moves, and you add it to the existing roster and the growth of some of the players already on the roster, such as Martin Necas and Andrei Svechnikov, and it starts to look pretty interesting for the Hurricanes. I clearly think they've made smart moves to shore up the power play, and I think that one we can give them a checkbox right now. Let's look at the second part of the discussion that I wanted to get into, and that was the toughness of the Hurricanes. I just mentioned that Michael Bunting is going to bring some toughness. He's a guy that likes to get into the dirty areas, as I said, and play tough and make things happen, and generally get in the face of the opposition. I think that's going to be key, and he'll be in there in those dirty areas where some of those loose pucks will come available. That's going to be something the Canes not had much of in the previous seasons. And then you add to that Orlov. Orlov is tough too. He's a player that likes to make those big open ice hits, and we've seen a number of videos of those. And he also likes to play hard in his own zone. So I think the addition of Orlov adds some toughness to the blue as well. And even Tony D brings some toughness. He likes to get out there and make it happen. He'll push and shove, of course. He's not a big player, but he definitely likes to get in the face of the opposition. And he's a guy that is going to add some more to that side of the equation for the Hurricanes for sure. As we look at the Carolina Hurricanes roster for this season, we can see there's one other add to the forward ranks for the Hurricanes. Again, this gentleman adds toughness to the Canes. That would be Brendan Lemieux. Lemieux comes in as a free agent signing, having played with Los Angeles the last couple of seasons. He's a third, fourth line guy, brings energy. He's going to be working hard on the forecheck and making things happen, and generally likes to get in the face of the opposition. So Lemieux, another add for the Hurricanes, and continues that move to increase toughness. Now, the Canes lineup was key in terms of keeping the top players going into this year once again, and that's something I wanted to talk about as the third pillar of the Canes' ability to win the Cup this year. Looking at the roster, you can see that most of the key players are here. They've got the top players, Sebastian Aho, of course, and Svechnikov, Necas, and all those guys. But then there were a couple of key forwards that were coming up to contract renewal. And this was a concern heading into the summer as free agency came along. And two guys on the third line, centerman and captain Jordan Staal and right winger Jesper both had expiring deals. So Don Waddell went to work and had both of these gentlemen sign team-friendly contracts to stay with the Hurricanes. Centerman Staal signed a 4-year deal, and Foss extended for 2 more. This was key for the Canes. These two guys formed 2/3 of a troika last year alongside Jordan Martinook as an outstanding group that really made things happen. They were one of the top lines in the playoffs. They are extremely tough to play against, play in all tough situations. Of course, all 3 of these gentlemen kill penalties as well, and they can chip in with some goals at key points too. I remember very well the performance of Jordan Martinook against New Jersey last year. He was outstanding and scored several key goals. So, those guys are back. That's good news. The Canes really only lost 2 forwards in the offseason. That would be a couple of centermen, Derek Stepan, who retired, and Paul Stastny, who is still looking for a contract this summer. They were replaced on the lineup by Bunting, who comes in as a new add, and then Jack Drury. Drury is going to center the 4th line for the Hurricanes and has earned the right. Drury had an excellent career in Harvard and then went on to play with the Chicago Wolves and help them to win the Calder Cup 2 years ago. He's definitely ready to go, and he brings a lot of key skills to that 4th line. He's a hard player. He plays a 200-foot game, and he can also chip in with offense too. So I think it's great to see Drury get his chance, and I think he's going to be an improvement over the existing guys that were there last year. And then, of course, Steph Nason is on the right side of that line. Nason also played alongside Drury in that Chicago Calder Cup win and had an outstanding season in the American Hockey League that year, scoring over 50 goals overall. So he really did it for the Wolves. He came up to the Canes last year for his first full season with the Canes, and he did not disappoint. He had an excellent season, was outstanding on the power play, and really made a difference as a hard-working lunch pail type of guy on the forward crew. So, again, everything looking good on the front side. Defensively, the Canes lost 2 defensemen in the offseason to free agency, but not a surprise. Calvin DeHaan moved on after his season with the Canes, but he actually lost his position once the trade deadline happened because the Canes acquired Shane Gostisbehere from the Arizona Coyotes. Gostisbehere was brought in to bring more offense to the defensive crew and also to help on the power play. So this meant there really wasn't a position for DeHaan. Unfortunately, both of these gentlemen have moved on, and the Canes needed to shore up the D. They did it in spades, as I mentioned earlier, with Dimitry Orlov and Tony DeAngelo. Those 2 guys formed the most outstanding 3rd pairing in the league and could be a 1 or a 2 pair on some teams for sure. And that's a situation the Canes really have as a luxury. The final area to take a look at, of course, is goaltending. And this was an area of great concern for the Hurricanes heading into the offseason. Their 2 star goaltenders from last year, Freddie Andersen and Raanta, both had expiring contracts. And the Canes already had Pyotr Kochetkov, their goaltender of the future, signed up for a $2 million deal over the next 3 years. So the question was, how could they make this work? But again, team-friendly contracts were the key, as Don Waddell and his team made it happen with both Andersen and Raanta. Andersen, coming off an outstanding playoff for the Hurricanes last year, he had a 1.83 goals against average and a .927 save percentage. He was lights out in the playoffs. And Raanta, all he did was have a 19-3-3 record during the regular season. So yes, these two guys were key for the Canes. And the ability to bring them both back alongside Pyotr Kochetkov was a real coup. These guys form, I think, the best three-man team in the National Hockey League. And as you know, that's critical these days due to the injuries that happen so frequently with goaltenders now. So the Canes are in great shape. They were able to bring all the boys back and are going to be looking forward to great performance from them once again. So it looks like the Hurricanes have loaded up to go all the way this year. I thought it'd be interesting to check out and see what the odds makers are saying. And guess what? They're definitely on board with the Canes. In fact, if we take a look at Vegas Insider's analysis, 4 of them are picking the Canes to go all the way. Bet365, BetMGM, Caesars, and DraftKings are all on board. This is exciting. I think this is the year of the Canes. Hey, thanks again for joining me as always. Please subscribe. Any comments you might have, please put them in down below and I'll respond promptly. Until next time, this is Tom Ray right here on StormTRacker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need StormTRacker.